Hey guys, back again from Common Sense Parenting, and today we're talking about how to get your children to solve problems for themselves. In part one, we talked about how we often focus our attention mostly on the problem and not on the solution, which is why we just get more of the same. We just get more problems. Kids are no different. They, especially when they're arguing with their playmate or with a sibling, all of the attention is on whose fault it is, who did it, and there's no discussion at all about how to move forward. And so it's our job as, their parents to guide them to a better way. And so when they were little and they would fight, I was just planting seeds at that point, trying to get them to be aware of what they were saying and what they were thinking. And I would come up and say, okay, what is the problem? And they would state the problem, and I would say, okay, so now we know what the issue is, and everybody understands. Now we can move on. So now if the issue is, tag or hide and seek, I used in the example in my writing, they're arguing about they're not staying in the boundaries that they agreed upon, but they will literally just stand there and argue about that forever, about where the boundaries were, who agreed, who disagreed, and it just goes on and on and on, as any parent will know from listening to their children incessantly argue about the same subject. And so I would come in and just say, okay, so now we know where the boundaries are. Does everybody understand? Yep. Okay, let's move on. And it's funny because they would just kind of look at me like it doesn't even occur to them to just, that already happened. There's no point in arguing about what did happen. Let's just talk about what we want to happen now. And so that if they continue to argue, that's what I say. Okay, we understand that that person didn't stay in the boundaries, and that was then, and moving forward, they're going to stay in the boundaries now. And it, again, seems like so simple to state out loud that you would just state what you want and move on, but we don't do that, and kids are the same. They just talk about what happened instead of talking about what they want to happen. And so that's all I do is I continuously guide my kids back to, okay, this happened. What do we want to happen? And they start to do the same thing. As they get older, it's actually easier. I find it's easier. Mine are 10 and 12, and the number one thing that you will hear come out of my mouth in our house when I hear them arguing is, look for solutions, stop looking for more problems. And that is usually enough to get them to stop for a minute. And if not, then I will come and step in and say, okay, again, what is the problem? And they'll both state how they feel about the problem and what they see as the problem. And then I will ask them both what they are offering up for solutions. And so now at this point, instead of giving them the solutions, I expect them to come up with them themselves, because there's always choices that they have. And then they start rhyming them off for me. They'll say, I could have came and got you. I could have done this. I could have walked away. I could have used my words. I could have done these things. And it's just getting them to see that there are solutions to the issue that they're dealing with. So now I know that it seems like I'm not dealing with the problems, or that I'm somehow discounting how my children feel, but I'm not. There are many times when we have to go a little bit further into the conversation and actually talk about how somebody's actions affected somebody else. And that's usually, again, that would be a different video about being able to listen to how other people feel and being able to communicate. And there are definitely times when they have to just sit and listen for a minute about how their actions affected somebody else. But again, I still at the end of those conversations get them to move forward and say, okay, this is how I felt, and in the future I don't want to be treated this way, and if you could do this, this, and this, then that would be awesome. Which again is still stating how you feel, stating what the problem is, and then moving on. If arguing continues to happen, I then give them their choices, because they can either move towards the solution or they can just stop playing altogether. So if if one of them continues to argue for the problem, I'll say, well, then choose not to be around them. Choose to go and do something else. But if you want to play together, then what is the solution? What is the solution so that everyone can feel better and move forward? And again, it seems very simple, but that is not what most of us do. Most parents come in and they referee between their children trying to figure out who did what and who's right and who's wrong, where I usually come in and I listen and I hear what the issue is, and then I just quickly move to the solution because that's how we move forward. So this teaches them many things. This teaches them to gear their mind towards looking for ways to move forward and solve problems instead of just focusing on the problems. It teaches them that they are not victims, that they always have a choice in every situation what they want to do, and that if they are totally unhappy, they're more than welcome to move completely out of the situation altogether. If they want to keep playing, then they can choose to move forward together, or if they are not wanting to do that, then they can also remove themselves from the situation. And I like that everyone in my house knows that they're responsible for themselves. And so blaming is a lot less in our house because everybody has a choice. Everybody has a choice about whether or not they want to look for solutions and move forward together and communicate, or whether or not they want to not be a part of the game at all anymore. And sometimes that's how it is. Sometimes the other person won't respect them or listen to them, and you'll just hear me say, then go and do something else. And they'll get up and go and leave. And usually, because they get bored, we'll usually come back and apologize to the other person and again find solutions to move forward so that they can hang out again. So it just kind of depends on the dynamics of your children. But like in the end, this again seems very, very simple and like common sense, that you would just look for solutions instead of problems, but most of us don't. And this is how I got my children to start solving problems for themselves, to the point now where I'll hear them say, "You're only looking for problems," when they speak to each other now. And it's been very interesting to watch them grow with this different type of approach, because there is a lot less blaming in our house, and there is a lot more accountability for your own behavior, because you always have a part to play and you always have a choice and you always get to decide what you want to do and all of that. So again, seems very simplistic, but that's why my page is called Common Sense Parenting. It wasn't common sense for me either, though. It took me a while to figure this out, and I would just come in and referee them and try to solve their issues by talking about the problem, which never did, because everyone's just gonna say, well, it was that person. The other person says, well, it was that person, but everybody is responsible for themselves. So what did you do to get yourself in this situation, and what did you do to perpetuate this situation is very, very different than everyone just standing around blaming each other. So I hope you liked this video. Comment below and like and share it. And follow me on social, on my blog, on Facebook, or on Instagram. Thanks for tuning in, guys.